Caught off guard.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is the Cars and Kicks podcast. I am Jacques Slade, and we've got a great show packed for you guys today, as we always do. I'm just going to stop saying that. I'm just going to say welcome to the show, and you already know that we've got some heat coming for you because we wouldn't fire up these cameras and these microphones and waste this good electricity because it's expensive out here in Cali. If we didn't have something really nice to talk about. Seriously, it's like 45 cents a kilowatt.
I feel you.
It's expensive in California. We got to get.
Oh dang! Look at us! Solar. Look at us talking about price of electricity per kilowatt hour over here.
I'm just saying.
For all the youngins out there.
Once you get an electric car and you look at the dashboard and see what your kilowatt hours are and how much you wasted on a trip because you were driving like a maniac, you got a heavy foot, as they say. You're like, man, they lied to me about how many miles this thing could go and how cheap this is going to be. They gave me it's too much power for one man to have. Honestly, that's what it is. Quite literally, the power. Anyway, not that you came here for a rant. Actually, that's why you came here, because to hear us talk about cars, and that's car related. Gosh,
that is. See, we're just gonna have to start segmenting the show, and we'll open it with Jacques' rant every single week.
Yeah, Jacques has a rant every week. Anyway, before we get the show started, let's we got an new intro for you guys, because that's what we do here. That's what we do here. Okay. We got your cars and kicks, yeah, we all in the mix. If you want your kicks, then you know where to come. It's all on the show. From Ferrari to Datsun, we talking about it. Something,
Datsun?
we Datsun. I was gonna say Datsun. I was trying to say Datsun because I was trying to throw an old car in there, but it threw me off because I was like, what rhymes with Datsun? And I was like, damn, I put myself in a bad position there.
You backed yourself into a corner there.
Yeah, that was my hardcore rap rock version of the intro.
Like Beastie Boys era.
Yeah, very Beastie Boys. Yeah, we're all in that mix. Yeah, I got it. Look. I'm multi-talented, baby. You know what I'm saying?
I was impressed. I thought you said Dachshund. I was like, how we end up on Wiener Dogs?
Yeah. No, it was Datsun, because Datsun was Toyota first, right? They were Toyota. That's what Nissan. Datsun was originally. Were they a part of Nissan, or were they Nissan before Nissan?
They were always part of it. I feel like Datsun was the U.S. version. Like that's how they introed themselves into the United States. I have to fact check myself on that. But I think when Nissan launched, there was still stigmas around Japanese car companies, and Nissan was known as a Japanese car company, so Datsun was kind of the pseudo name when they launched. I'm going to fact check myself on that. Or if you guys want to fact check me, because we need to get our fans interactive here, then you guys can fact check me and shoot me a DM at the Cars and Kicks show, at Cars X Kicks show. Man, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, great start here. Nissan pulled the switcheroo on us. Anyway, I'm Jacques Slade. This is the Cars and Kicks show / podcast / video on the YouTubes and all of those places where you can watch these beautiful faces that you see across your screen. You can find me at Cousteau, but really this show isn't about me at all. I'm really the guy that just does random intros at the beginning and tries to keep you entertained. But really the weight of that is with these other two guys, because they're the ones that really keep the show going. They're the ones with all the information. They're the ones with the knowledge. Look, I'm just the guy on a podcast, really, is all it is. But these two, they handle all the work. First up, my man Eric, because he's the one that's next to me in the video that I'm watching. Hopefully, you guys, he's next to me in the video that you're watching. Again, he's not on the other side, because then that would be.
I'm
going to stop talking. Video. Yeah, I'm going to stop talking. Go ahead. It's all you, Eric.
Whatever side I happen to be on your screen, I'm Eric Valdez. I am the resident car guy here. Who may or may have not gotten the Datsun anecdote right. We're gonna figure that out. So, but either way, yeah, we're here after a couple of weeks off. We were sick. We were traveling. We were lifing, all sorts of stuff. So, actually, no, we weren't a couple of weeks off. That'll be the episodes that aired before this. So look how rusty we are. with this.
It's
See,
not.
I'm
It's
trying to
not
think
Russ. It's
future
not
wise.
Russ. They're just seeing the real side of us now. This is the real
Yes,
podcast. Now we've gotten to the point where like we don't need to put on masks. We're giving you guys us 100% honest and real. We
that's
no
true. We're
longer
not
need to
we're
put
not
on
going to start
airs.
this over.
Yeah.
We're
No.
not going to start
Oh
this
no.
over
Oh
so
no.
that
This
it
is
sounds nice and polished. This is all staying.
Yeah.
how we do it.
Nick, hey, your third time's a charm. Go for it, Nick.
My name's Nick Ingval. I am the resident kind of crossover of both these worlds of cars and kicks. Datsun is on my bucket list for sure. I'd love to have a 510, but I will say I also went to a place in Ginza back earlier this year that was called Nissan Crossing. And there was a lot of Datsun / Nissan heritage paraphernalia, coffee. It was a really cool spot. So that's where my mind went. Thankfully, I heard Datsun and not Dachshund. But nothing against wiener dogs, like it is what it is. But
Yeah.
We love the animals here at the Cars and Kicks podcast.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. I'm just trying to get my bona fides with the car audience that's listening. That's why I threw Dotson in there, because I wanted them to be like, look at Jacques, and yet still I knew absolutely nothing about Dotson. I just knew the word. All right, so let's get into the show here. Let's start off with some basketball news. Cars and Kicks, and this is kind of in the Kicks era arena. Mr. LeBron James and his son Bronny James broke the record. Or I shouldn't say broke the record. They created the record. They started the record, being the first father and son duo to play in the NBA at the same time on the same team on the court at the exact same time. Now, as a dad, I think that's pretty awesome. That's a pretty cool thing, and I know it happens in other sports, but to see it happen in basketball and to see for someone like LeBron, for my generation that I grew up watching play basketball, like I've seen him since he essentially was a kid, and to see that like full circle moment for him. And I was tweeting about, or Xing about it. I don't know what to call it. I was Eloning. I was Eloning during the game, and like my heart started beating when they were like, oh, Bronny James is coming into the game. My heart started beating all fast. I was like, man, I'm having a full like adult dad moment right now watching this happen. Like, you wanted it to go well for them. So, kudos to them. And, talking to Eric, I know how much his little man is into cars. So I could only imagine what it's going to be like when you see him get into a race car or get on a track for the first time.
I mean, just to your point there, watching that whole moment with LeBron and Bronny, it did. I mean, it was there was onions being chopped in my house when that was happening.
Yes.
It really, it does. It hits home, I think, for anybody, but especially if you're a dad, just knowing, what it is, what you've devoted your life to, and then seeing kind of your little mini me come out there, not just to go play and watch on the sidelines, but to like join you on a grand stage. Yeah, they've been playing ball with each other since Bronny was born, but not in front of a massive audience like this, not on the Lakers floor. Like, it was super dope. And tying it into the Cars and Kicks thing, they teased this prior. I think y'all saw the Nike ad. We posted it on our page a while back, but where LeBron took the Fruit Loops, a little tie to the Fruit Loops, the LeBron James Nikes, and dumped them in the Lamborghini. And a whole moment of like, see you at the game, Rook type thing. That was cool. That's Nike's done some really cool moments like that in marketing. So it was a nice lead up to the actual moment.
Yeah, Nike's been back in their bag, let's say, with the ads the last like 3 months. Like, the stuff that's been coming out has felt really like nostalgic, but like exciting to me.
It's been better for sure.
I can't speak to the being a father aspect of it. To think about playing any sport on that level, as someone who used to play softball with my dad and my uncles and my grandparents and stuff, like that would be incredible. I think it's even cooler, that Bronny got his first bucket in Cleveland. The crowd was totally into it. I mean, to be fair, Cleveland was like killing him, so they were probably just excited to get a win over LeBron. But it was like, talk about a full circle moment, like that whole thing just gets you worked up, man. Gets you worked up.
Going off on a bit of a tangent here, but the Dodgers won the World Series. I know that happened a couple weeks ago, or whatever. But have you guys seen over the as it ended over the days and weeks after these interviews with Freddie Freeman, who was the star of the whole series, and talking about his dad and their relationship and everything, and he dedicated that whole walk-off grand slam to his dad, and just the stories behind it are. Anytime you see father son duos in anything. I don't care if you go down to the local hardware store and you see a dad kind of mentoring his son
Yeah.
into the family business. Anytime you see that relationship, it's awesome. And to see it at high level sports it's incredible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's super dope moments in sports. That all ties into the sneaker world, because I'm sure you guys saw some of the stuff the heat that Mookie Betts was wearing on the mound out there.
Yeah.
And Jacques, you got the scoop on all the stuff that's been dropping now that NBA is back. So tell us a bit more about what we've seen so far.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very interesting NBA season because one, we aren't, well, as of now, we aren't going to see PJ Tucker. So PJ Tucker is sitting out because he's not happy with the way that he's being used on the Clippers. And so we're not seeing a lot of
Drama.
him. Yeah, so it's a very interesting,
Yeah.
like he's the sneaker guy for the NBA. Like we have people that wear, like LeBron wears stuff, obviously, Ja Morant, Luca, like Tatum, Steph, all these guys wear shoes that get attention, but no one gets attention like PJ. So it's gonna there's an open space really in the NBA this year to see who kind of fills that gap. And it'd be interesting to see who that is, because PJ Tucker has such a like historical like sneaker culture context to the shoes that he wears. And I wonder, is that still going to be the lead, or is there going to be someone else that introduces something new, a new sort of flavor of shoes that they wear to really kind of break that PJ Tucker stranglehold?
So this makes me think of a question that I'll ask you guys and to the audience. There's an interesting like kind of what if about this that I think also crosses over into car culture. If you were given the opportunity to have a sneaker deal and be given, let's say player exclusives, maybe you get some good Kobe's, some good Jordans, some cool Adidas that are specifically for you. They got your name, number on it, like that's something that not a lot of people get to experience. But it means you have to stick with that one brand. Do you choose to go down that path and stick with a brand, being a team guy that gets, player edition shoes for, let's say, Nike? Or do you, look at the bigger picture and say, okay, well, maybe I could actually work with many brands over the course of a season and do some stuff with maybe retailers? Because PJ Tucker does own, his own sneaker store. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, but, like to me, he needs that, doesn't need the publicity that he gets from wearing so many different shoes, even though he's, like most people, he's a big Nike guy. But he has a lot of depth to his collection. And I think that helps his business on one hand. And in the car world, that same question is like a really tough question. If you had the opportunity to have one car manufacturer the rest of your life, would you choose that? Or do you choose to kind of go your own path and say, okay, well, I love all these cars, so I'm going to stay away from like a specific brand deal that locks me in for a long-term thing? Because once you've done that, and I think this happens in both worlds, once you've chosen to say, okay, I'm a Nike guy for the next 10 years, a lot of people never think of you other than a Nike guy.
Right.
There's certain athletes, Kevin Garnett's had 7 or 8 different signature lines, with different brands. But like people think of him and they think of different eras of his career. Most people probably that are, into sneakers probably think of Nike or Jordan in his early years. And then like on the flip side of that, like there's definitely people that have made a career out of racing a particular car or building particular show cars.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really interesting question. Would you choose the contract with one brand, or would you choose the kind of freedom of creativity that could come with a potential without that.
Okay,
I
Eric,
mean,
Eric, I'm gonna go
Jacques,
first. Let me go
go
first
Jacques.
because I feel like you're gonna give a very like informed, nuanced, intelligent answer. And
I was actually
I
just
don't
gonna say, do you want to marry one girl or stay not monogamous?
okay,
No, you
yeah,
go with
yeah.
it.
So okay, I'm gonna say, so I like relationship building and I like consistency. So for me, I think signing with one brand and continuing on with that brand, hopefully over your lifetime, is probably the way to go, at least in my book. Now, on the car side, which brand that would be is very is challenging in my mind. And again, this is why I wanted to go before Eric, because I'm Eric is going to be like, "Hey, idiot." Um because I think so. I'm thinking of this in two different ways. One, I'm thinking I was like, okay, let's go the luxury route. Get a luxury brand. It's high end, cool. Do something like Porsche. Okay, cool. That's perfect.
Portia.
Porsche. So, see, again, this is why I'm going first. Um, so like Porsche, I feel like okay, you can get a nice car. You can. They have the SUVs now, so like you get something like that. But then there's also a part of me that was like, you know, think like a Ford or a Chevy would be like the everyman's car. They have low end cars, they have high end cars, they have like massive trucks, they have like the huge construction
Hmm.
trucks, they have like the cutesy I want a truck but all I'm really hauling is my sneakers kind of trucks, like you know what I mean. So I feel like
Yeah,
they have the Mustang, so they have the fast cars, they have the muscle cars, so you have that sort of thing. So all that to say,
variety.
they have the variety. So all that to say, if I have the choice to be with one brand, that's a car brand, I think I'm gonna go with Ford. I
Okay.
think that'll
All
cover my
right.
bases. And see that okay from Eric? That was very much like that is a stupid answer.
No,
that
no,
is
no.
that was a terrible answer. If we were on
Well,
Jeopardy, he would be like, "Sorry, take away 3,000 points." Take away
well,
3,000.
we got another story coming up in this episode that's going to make you rethink that. I think, but
Yeah,
I'll
Okay,
yeah, you're
all
digress.
right,
right.
all right, all right.
It's
Okay, so
so
okay,
so
go
here.
ahead,
Let me
Eric.
let me put it this way. It's a very practical answer. To your point, yes, you have variety. If you need to haul 40,000 pounds of sneakers, you go get yourself an F450, or actually, I think the F350 single cab dual rear axle is the one with the
Yeah,
highest tow rating. Anyway,
yeah.
if you've got that, you got the Mustang, you got this. So I respect your decision. I'm not against it. Here for me, it's a bit more complicated in both the sneaker and the car world. And by the way, before I go off, I think it's the TBG, the better generation is PJ Tucker's store,
The
right?
better, yep, yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I digress. Going back to the sneaker thing, I mean, if you're a LeBron James at 18 years old and Nike throws you $1 billion lifetime deal, I think you're a Nike guy for the rest of your life, regardless of whether you like the sneakers or not. That kind of makes the decision easy. So if Ford throws you $1 billion, Jacques, or Hyundai or whomever,
Yeah.
you're gonna take it, right?
Yes.
From a passion side of things, that's where I think it gets interesting, right? Because we evolve as humans, right? We evolve, not only in how we move our bodies as athletes and just adults, we evolve into what our needs are on a daily basis. So
Mm-hmm.
from a sneaker standpoint, you've got the luxury of whether you go with you're a Nike guy or an Adidas guy or whatever, you've got kind of the variety either way. You got running shoes, you got gym shoes, you got basketball shoes,
Yes.
golf shoes, etc. So you've got that on either side. What I find interesting is you take the approach of, say, for example, like Jerry Lorenzo, who initially had that relationship with Nike,
Mm-hmm.
with Fear of God, and did a couple of sneakers that he released and everything. And I don't know the ins and outs of the whole relationship, but apparently it wasn't a very healthy one.
Right.
So he gets not poached, but he gets approached by Adidas, and whatever they did internally was enough for him to tat 3 stripes on the back of his neck, and now he is legit an Adidas guy for life, right?
Right.
So there was some monetary aspect involved, but also the passion involved, and I think it's more comes down to who do you align yourself more with from a value standpoint, from a whatever it is when it comes to sneakers and or cars. And this is a long-winded answer, I know, but I'm going to try to shorten it up. On the car world, for me, I think it'd be very difficult. You've got guys like, to Nick's point, you got guys like Patrick Long, who, the founder of Lufta Cult that we were just at recently, who has been a factory Porsche driver for years. That's all he really drives exclusively is Porsches. If you're going to drive one brand of car, I think that's an amazing choice. However, look at people like Lando Norris, okay? He is a McLaren driver. Have you seen this dude's car collection? It's insane. He is a 20-something-year-old kid with better taste in cars than 99% of people out there. He's got classic Lamborghinis, Ferraris, McLarens. He's got all sorts of different things, and it's incredible. And I think if you are a true passionate individual, whether it be sneakers or cars, I think to say you're gonna just stick with one brand for the rest of your life is kind of a hard thing to do, unless again it's heavily monetized or something. Just because we evolve and our taste is different. I mean, that's my opinion. So for me, I don't know, as much as I love Nike. I always kind of been more of a Nike guy. It doesn't mean I'm not going to wear Sauconys or Asics or Adidas or whatever. And when it comes to cars, I'm going to drive a variety of everything. My garage right now says that. And so I've never been a diehard, Chevy guy or Ford guy like a lot of the older generations were. My father-in-law, for example, he's almost exclusively driven Chevys his whole life. And there are other people that are on the opposite end of that drove Fords. But for me, it's a more complicated thing than just picking one side, so to speak.
So then maybe you're gonna go GM, where you can drive like a Chevy, a GMC, a Cadillac.
I'm not going to commit to anybody unless they pay me a lot of money, is what I'm saying.
I mean, I think we're all talking. We're assuming that we're all going to get money for this. See, and this is what I was saying. See, I told you guys, Eric is going to give a more nuanced answer, and I was like, I just want to haul dirt from my backyard, so I need a truck. I need a Ford.
Funny little anecdotal story, and then I'll let Nick speak too. I was, I live kind of out in the country here in Texas. And so I was ironically, picking up mulch the other day at the hardware store for my front yard. And I had this guy, he had to have been 72 years old. And he gets out of the store, walking towards his truck. He walks over, he's got his creased Wranglers on, his boots, some old ratty t-shirt. He's got a pocket knife and a tape measure attached to his belt. He's got a cap and a little ponytail. And he goes, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And he goes, "How much will that thing tow?" And I said, "I think it's like 11,000 pounds." He goes, "Pah!" And he walks away. And I said, "What was it, 11,000 pounds not enough? What do you need to tow?" "I got to tow a bunch of bulls down the highway, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "So basically you're telling me that's a mom truck." I was like, a mom? Okay, I'm not going to argue with a 70-something-year-old dude about trucks. Meanwhile, he goes to get into his probably 97 Ram diesel, 2500 diesel. And it didn't start the first like 3 attempts. And so I'm just sitting there in my mom truck laughing like, all right, dude, I get your point, but that was completely unnecessary. So anyway, fun little anecdotal story that has nothing to do with anything, but
I love the visual of that. I love the visual of that. Him walking away. That's a mom truck.
The crazy part is there's no way. I'm trying to think back of like that era of Dodge trucks. I don't think he's towing more than 7,500, 10,000 pounds tops, maybe, unless it's like a full, 3,500.
The 2,500 with a Cummins diesel that he had, I don't know what it would have been, but to your point, it was probably in the mid 13 to 15,000 range, which back then was a lot to tow. The reality is it's much more complicated than that. I guarantee you the Rivian makes probably close to double the torque that old Cummins diesel makes, but the chassis is not designed to tow. And
Yeah.
part of me wanted to be like, well, look, you want to take my mom truck down the street and let's do a little drag race because my 835 horsepower will get me to the other end of that street a lot quicker than your Dodge that isn't even starting right now. But
Yeah. Also, if there's anybody from Chrysler, Dodge, whatever other names you choose to throw onto that company, Stellantis, just pause right here, fast forward like 15 seconds. He's probably had so many transmission problems in that truck. Those trucks are horrible, man.
Yeah.
I have so many friends and family that have had those trucks and then just been like, okay, straight back to a Ford or a Chevy. Not that those trucks don't also have problems, but transmission problems in those the Chrysler family runs deep.
Yeah.
Anyway,
when I was young,
that's why.
When I was young, people did not like Ford in my neighborhood. It was they had the fix or repair daily was the acronym for Ford.
There's a couple other acronyms that are not family friendly.
Oh really? Oh, I only heard the fix or repair daily. Oh well, never mind. I still want to haul mulch out my backyard. So
look, I've owned a lot of Fords. I've owned a lot of cars. They all have their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And that's again why I can't really commit to one brand. I mean, look, if Porsche or Ferrari wanted to lock me down, it wouldn't take a whole lot of money, but you know.
I mean,
how are you going to haul dirt out of the yard? What Porsche
Ferrari,
is going to haul dirt from the backyard? Which Porsche is going to tow your lawnmower?
Yeah.
Oh,
the Cayenne with a trailer. You know, a few-year-old Cayenne diesel even. That with a little 3-liter diesel, they did well. People are overlanding those now. They're quite nice. So I can find a way.
You'll find a way. You'll find a way. All right.
Here's the thing about that question. So I just can't imagine choosing one brand in any of those things. Like I can't wrap my head around it. Like, you know, obviously if somebody's like, here's $1 billion, you know, maybe I'm willing to live on a private island without having to think about any of these questions again. Sorry for the podcast listeners. If I disappear one day, that's what happened. Somebody offered me $1 billion, and I love you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening and subscribing. But I will say, like, the craziest part about that question is to really think about the like very few number of people who have had that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson. Even Tracy McGrady had a lifetime deal with Adidas, and he is no longer with Adidas. And to like your comment about Jerry Lorenzo, he's been having a lot of public differences with Adidas recently.
Great word, differences.
So I think that like to think that these things can exist in a way where people are going to be truly, to your point, Eric, people evolve, brands evolve, you know, unless you're evolving with each other and figuring out ways to like push each other without going beyond what people are comfortable with in that relationship. Mm-hmm. I don't think this is really even a feasible thing for the future. I don't think we'll see athletes signing lifetime deals anytime soon. I just think it's a thing of the past.
On the flip side of that, how lucrative has it really been? I mean, obviously, LeBron James is one of the biggest stars in the world. Michael Jordan, one of the biggest stars in the world. But like, are there any? Is that era of superstar kind of gone? Because nowadays there's a lot, arguably a lot more. You can spread your money elsewhere, right? Like you can have 4 or 5 superstars, maybe not like that level. But you can have 4 or 5 really high-profile athletes, spread your kind of funds if you're Nike or Adidas, and cast a broader net, you know?
But that's also the key, right? That's the key. The key is that works for LeBron, too. So LeBron can go and have his Beats deal. He can go have his Taco Bell deal. He can do all this stuff on his own without having to rely on that Nike. So LeBron's initial... You can correct me if I'm wrong on this. LeBron's initial contract with Nike was around like $70 to $80 million, 7-year contract. He was offered approximately 60 by Adidas and approximately 115 by Reebok. That's like a very like out there crazy story.
I feel like I remember this story.
So he walked away from a lot more money from Reebok at that time. But to put that in context, this is also an era, where Allen Iverson is arguably at the top of the sneaker pyramid during that era of Michael Jordan retiring. People, we didn't have that Michael Jordan, kind of figure in the league for that small window.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like that far outside, probably it would have been people would have bet that he would have signed with Reebok. I think what's happening now is we're getting people that, brands don't want to commit to somebody for that length of time, but also like the creative aspects of people are so much bigger than sports, which is such a beautiful thing, right? LeBron is like he's like so far above everybody in all of this stuff. And I wouldn't, don't want to get into the greatest of all time argument, but this man has done so much off the court that is so admirable and inspiring to other people that I think that the money side of this conversation gets thrown out the window because of, what he's able to do by diversifying everything. If he comes into the league, and this is where the interesting part of NIL deals and the younger, we're going to talk about Angel Reese, like those types of deals that happen early on, these athletes know that their potential is exponential to what Michael Jordan's potential was in 1985.
Right.
I'm not saying that as on the court. Like most people will never touch Michael Jordan on the court, and we would all likely agree with that. But somebody that comes into the league like a Wemby or, one of these people that are just like have a wow factor to them, they're coming into the league knowing like, well, LeBron, got X and Y and Z for this. And and I want to do X, Y, and Z on top of my basketball career. So they come into it knowing that they're going to negotiate way harder at the beginning than I think we ever saw before, which is a really interesting generational change, which kind of to tie this back in, I think PJ Tucker, there was an era there where PJ Tucker probably had an opportunity to partner with a Foot Locker, a Flight Club type, a GOAT, StockX type. And he did off and on with different places. But had he done like a longer term deal with any of those people, probably could have seen that grow. And honestly, the way those platforms grew over the past 5 or 6 years could have seen his following even grow because of it. So it's just a really interesting kind of, all of our worlds are getting thrown into a blender in terms of creativity. So like if you're an athlete, it used to be the guys that were really good at playing street ball had to go play with And One on the mixtapes. And they didn't get into the league. One or two of those guys played in the league for a few seasons, right? But now it's like we're seeing guys play at the Drew in the off season and do all the crazy street ball moves and have some fun with it. We're seeing people show up at the Rucker and play. I think we're getting to the point where the NBA and like thinking about what you were talking about with the Dodgers winning the series. I don't know the stats, but I saw a stat that was basically like the viewership on the World Series was exponential to what it's been in recent years. And it was actually more than the NBA championships last year by like 40-50%, which is kind of insane to think. Now you got Shohei Ohtani, who we've talked about a little bit off the pod and on the pod. He's the perfect example of like, how do we bring this together with every aspect of life that he's got going on? Because you go to Japan, he's everywhere. He's, he's on a razor blade ad. He's on a soap ad. He's on a green tea, like just everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think we don't see that as much for the NBA right now, which is a really interesting aspect of this whole conversation, because I feel like sneakers took over everything for the NBA for like a number of years. And then it's like, we have the Sprites and the Gatorades, but like outside of those couple of brands that like were always a part of it, we don't have like a staple, like, oh, this company is always around Kia was the NBA sponsor for a number of years for the dunk contest and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think people think of Kia when they think of the NBA the way they think of Gatorade or, whatever else.
Yeah, it's interesting when you have a megastar like Otani, who is international. By birth, he's going to have inherently a larger following internationally, and I feel like that might be part of the quote unquote issue here is I'm sure I haven't, been all over the world and seen LeBron James ads and stuff here and there, but I'm sure he's got international deals. But I feel like if you have an international born superstar that comes to the States to be on the largest stage, because, the world looks to our pro sports as like the Mecca, I think that combination makes whomever that happens to be, puts them in a position to write their own check, basically. And that's a whole other topic. We can get into it some other time, especially with Formula One drivers and things of that nature that have an even
Yes.
broader audience globally
Yes.
than they do in the States.
That's-
You know what I mean?
That's what I wanted to ask. Like, so I don't
Yeah.
help me understand this Mercedes decision. Like, I don't understand why they would get rid of Lewis Hamilton. Is it a money issue? Like, he has.
It was a
he's
Hamilton
so
decision.
It was Hamilton's decision.
It was a Hamilton decision, and I'll tell you why. The long and short of it is that, and this goes back to what we were talking about with long-term relationships, right, or lifetime relationships. Like, he's been in the Mercedes sphere for years. He was a development driver with McLaren, but at that time, McLaren and Mercedes had technical partnerships, et cetera. So he's been in that whole world of Mercedes since from a very young age. He did, he raced for McLaren, then he went to Mercedes, and he's kind of done that career-wise. I will say this: it's like any pro athlete in any sport. They're going to want to, if they've done everything else in their career but play for Team X, the most iconic team, then that's what's left on their bucket list. And Hamilton at this point has nothing to prove. He's broken every record there is out there. He's continuing to set records and stuff, even at this point in his career. The one thing that, I don't care who you are, every motorsport driver, especially, in Formula One, the one bucket list item is to race for Ferrari. So that came down to Hamilton basically say, at this point, Mercedes could have said, hey, we'll give you $500 million to race for us for 2 more seasons. It's not about that to him. He's got more money than he'll ever need, and including in global endorsements and everything that we're talking about there. It was, my legacy, the only thing missing from that is me being a Ferrari driver. So that's what that decision was. It was exclusively, and I haven't talked to Hamilton about this personally, but I can almost guarantee you that's exactly how that went down.
So driving for Ferrari is like playing for the Lakers, essentially.
It's like playing for the Lakers or the Celtics.
Lakers?
What part of the country you're in, or playing for the Dodgers or the Yankees, or you know what I mean? It is that.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
It's
I
the pinnacle.
don't even feel seen on this podcast anymore.
What's that hat you got on? Oh, I forgot San Fran has a baseball team.
Wait, okay.
No, I think the other thing with Lewis that's really interesting is like the offer that was reported from Mercedes was like a couple of years or 2-3 years where Ferrari basically said, hey, this is going to go on beyond your racing career.
Oh, he's got an ambassador deal with Ferrari. Yeah.
And that part of it is like to going back to the conversation around the LeBron or somebody like that. Like Lewis has the potential to do so much more beyond his career. He's already done so much, but he's racing 10, 11 months out of the year at this point. So once he steps out of the car, full time, he'll still be around the sport, I'm sure, but it's going to be, he's going to be such a valuable partner for anybody that he wants to work with.
I think that's the other part that Ferrari probably had an edge on, aside from just being Ferrari. Mercedes doesn't have the post-career cachet that Ferrari does either. Ferrari is actually more globally known as a brand than a car manufacturer. They probably sell more stuffed bears wearing Ferrari jerseys and hats and stuff like that than they do cars. That's just almost probably a factual statement. I'm going to say probably so we don't get into legal trouble because I haven't looked at the numbers. But it allows somebody like Hamilton to continue to have a key role in the company that's globally known, and for him, it's also they see the value in him as an ambassador post active racing career, and it allows him a little bit of leverage in saying, look, I'm bringing a lot to the table too, so can you guys support me in my off track stuff when it comes to bringing minorities into our world, when it comes to bringing women up through, motorsport, when it comes to all sorts of stuff. Like Hamilton's got such a broad approach to his off-track life and helping others that doesn't really get talked about that much in this country. I'm sure
Yeah.
it's, in Europe and everything, it's a little bit more talked about. But either way, I think he had that going for him too. And Ferrari basically said, "Hey, tell us what you want to do. We'll support you." And so I think it's one of those kind of, that will be almost a lifelong relationship at this point. I think once he goes to Ferrari, and then however many years he ends up staying with them as an active driver, beyond that, I think it's still just going to be one of those lifelong partnerships.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
the way it's supposed to be,
agreed.
and that's the way I kind of always imagined it. And I just imagined that it would be Mercedes because he's so closely tied to him. The world knows him as a Mercedes
Yeah.
driver. They know him as Lewis Hamilton, obviously alone, but they also know him as like a Mercedes driver. It would be like, it kind of feels like Kobe for like those last few years being like, all right, I'm gonna go play for the Knicks. We'd be like, wait, what? Wait, what do you mean? Like it just
Mhm.
feels
Yeah.
weird to me. But
I feel you.
I get it.
It feels like a miss for Mercedes to me, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like they had the opportunity to have a lifelong ambassador and someone with that sort of cultural cachet that reaches
Yeah.
across the divide, that can bridge the gap and do all the things that you want a driver to be able to do. And they were like, all right, well, go to Ferrari. Cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yep.
anyway.
Yeah.
Other sneaker news. That was a long sneaker news segment there.
Hey.
Angel Reese is getting her shoe in 2026. She'll have her signature shoe. She just signed an extension with the folks over at Reebok, aka Shaq and Allen Iverson. So it'd be great to see her cook. Although the signature sneaker market is getting really packed. There's so many people with signature shoes now. I don't recall a time when there were this many signature shoes in the league. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really going to be, there's going to be a lot of weight on, I think, sneaker manufacturers in the next few months to like, how do you separate yourself? Because these signature shoe
Yeah.
deals, not that they're just giving them out to anybody, but there's so many in the league right now. And I was trying to think of a parallel in the car world, and the only thing I could think of was, EVs. Everybody has an EV, but EVs aren't particularly doing well right now. At least that's what you're hearing in the news. And it's like, is there? But that doesn't seem like an appropriate. It doesn't seem equal. But it's like it was the only thing that I could think of where it seems like there was so much flooding the market at one time in a short
I
span.
think there's and Nick's got a story that kind of ties into this. We will have just gotten through SEMA when this episode airs, and I feel like that is a kind of a platform for ambassadors to partner with brands, etc. To debut not necessarily new vehicles, but kind of showcase the signature vehicles. There are certain builders that are well known, that always have a presence at the SEMA show, et cetera. We just had RJ De Vera, the head of marketing at SEMA, on last episode, and he enlightened us a bit on what's happening there. But you're seeing either race car drivers, personalities, et cetera, partner with manufacturers, and they have for a long time, to kind of release signature versions of their cars. The car world is a little different than the sneaker world in that there are certain constraints due to safety, due to cost, due to emissions, due to whatever, that doesn't allow them to be as creative as they necessarily would like to be.
Right.
Also, because the vast majority of people buying their product are buying it for practicality, not individualization, or showing off what their personality is, kind of like we are as car guys.
Yeah.
So they have to kind of toe the line a little bit and be a little safer. The SEMA show allows them to partner with people and express their creativity, but then every now and then you have these little relationships that kind of go awry, and that's what Nick and I all three of us were talking about off the air. But Nick, you take that story there, because I found this one kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think I've been going down this rabbit hole of like YouTube car builders for the last few years, just like following all sorts of guys and girls that are, just passionate about cars, and documenting their experiences on YouTube. And it's really fascinating because you have like kind of, have different levels to it, just like any form of content that's out there.
Mhm.
But one of the probably most successful in terms of like subscriber count and brand built behind his name is this guy named TJ Hunt. He's from the San Diego area, North County, San Diego area, and he's been building cars on YouTube for 10 years or so, and literally was one of those guys that started like, hey, I just got some parts and I decided to put an exhaust on my car kind of person. And now he's got a whole he just built out a new warehouse. Is I don't know, at least at least a dozen cars being built at all times, it seems like, and has a whole kind of streetwear merch brand alongside of it. But he made a video recently just basically saying that he also is either owner or co-owner of Street Hunter, which is a company that builds these crazy wide body kits. So think like if you're familiar with RWB that we've talked about for the Porsche stuff, or Pandem Rocket Bunny stuff for the JDM cars, Street Hunter is kind of like an American company that does these really aggressive stand stout builds, but you can buy the kits. So he basically made a video saying that he didn't name the manufacturer, but he's working on a Mustang, Street Hunter Mustang. Kind of, if you followed him for any amount of time, you're looking forward to this car being unveiled at SEMA.
Yeah.
And he got a cease and desist from an unnamed manufacturer saying not to display the car, which is just unfortunate. Like, I think there's a lot of nuance and a lot of, reasoning for these things that happen. But when I saw it, the first thing I thought of was one of our earliest episodes talking about Dom and AKA the shoe surgeon, or just the surgeon now, and his custom sneakers, and having Nike sue him. And it just hurts as a creative person, as a creator. It's just like, man, just reach out and figure it out. Like I feel like we can talk through these things as human beings before we have to get lawyers involved. But I also understand that, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars worth of, IP, and with a company like Ford, I guess I can name it since we're not in a lawsuit, in case you didn't know who made the Mustang. They are always building cool cars for SEMA. They always have amazing partnerships, to your point, Eric. Like, SEMA is like,
my buddy John's built a couple for them. They support
that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talked about some of these cars on our trip to San Antonio. It's like, how did we get to the point where you're suing someone or sending a cease and desist? Well, I know there are legal differences between the two, but like from a general consumer perspective, lawyers are involved and I have to stop is the same thing, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
If I'm building a car and lawyers from a company reach out and say, don't do this, that is the same thing as whatever. Right.
Right.
But it's like, the craziest part about this, and I keep thinking about this because TJ talks about, and we won't know until after SEMA and to see how this plays out, but TJ basically said, hey, I'm going to bring the car to Vegas and we'll just throw a meet outside of SEMA and it'll be the biggest meet Vegas has ever seen. And this kind of ties into our whole conversation this episode, because he does bring that kind of energy and like can bring that many people out. And so many people plan their trips to SEMA to see these individual builds that have been planned for months in advance. And for Ford to wait until, a week before SEMA to drop that bombshell on him. Obviously, he's not going to burn his bridges with the people at SEMA. He's not going to go out of his way to like, cause more chaos. But like, he has the ability to say, I'm bringing the car to Vegas and I'm going to throw a meet and it's going to be insane. And it's going to create more publicity for his brand. And Ford is going to miss out on it, right? Yeah, the car that he's going to bring is a Mustang, but it almost is kind of like the banned Jordan 1 situation. If he doesn't get to actually produce those body kits through Street Hunter, and that car becomes a one of one with a prototype body kit on it, this is how we have really interesting collectible cars in a lot of ways that I can't wrap my head around the thought process from the Ford side, because it's like, this is arguably the guy that's like, you know, people have different opinions on this, but I would say he's probably a top 10 automotive YouTuber in terms of reach and just size of his audience. And that's just something that, again, goes back to like the shoe surgeon thing for me. It's like, I don't understand how we get to this point where there's these lawsuits when you need both, like TJ Hunt is not going to start manufacturing cars anytime soon.
Right.
Dom is not going to start manufacturing, GR level sneakers anytime soon. Like, people that perfected their craft need to be embraced by the brands in order for the brands to even, be relevant, in my opinion,
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets interesting for me, and this goes back to our conversation, conversation. What word is that? Conversation with our buddy Zach. Sneaker Legal early on about the shoe surgeon lawsuit and everything like that. Some of the things that he mentioned come to mind here, because I saw renderings of this TJ Hunt Mustang. It is extremely similar to the GTD, that is a OEM version of Ford's Mustang. It's a very exclusive, very expensive $300,000 plus Mustang. I can going back and kind of listening to this from a with a legal ear speaking to me. I can understand to a certain degree why a cease and desist would be delivered, because it is very similar to that GTD. And so when you start talking, when we had him on the show and he was talking about defining, what is considered, I guess, a copy versus something individual or whatever, when you compare these two things, it's interesting. I'm kind of on both sides here, because I like the idea of expressing yourself and offering a body kit to your conventional Mustang driver that can't afford a $300,000 GTD. But at the same time, Ford spent how many, hours and countless dollars developing what is arguably going to be their best performance oriented Mustang, maybe quicker around the Nürburgring than the GT itself, not the Mustang GT, but the Ford GT. And for them to just say, okay, well, all of our development is now just being copied with a body kit, it negates, what we've done a bit. Now, mind you, if they were selling it at a price point of 75, 85 grand, I think the argument would hold a lot more weight. I don't think anybody who's getting a GTD, a Mustang GTD, really cares whether there's other kind of replicas out there or not. Because it is so exclusive. I think it was one of those where you had to submit an application to Ford and they had to approve you to buy the car. You couldn't just rock up with a bunch of money and be like, hey, I want one. They're like, no. Tell us why you need one.
Really?
And we'll let you know whether we want you to purchase this car or not.
Oh, that's
so it's that level of exclusivity. So I think the guys that are getting them, it's almost like, to them, it's laughable in a weird way to see a replica version of that. It's like the guys, with countless Rolexes or Pateks or whatever that walk around and they see somebody with a fake version of their watch. It's not going to affect them either way. But from a manufacturer standpoint, I can see how this might, if this does go to court, this might go their way, basically, Ford's way, if it does go to a full-on lawsuit.
So I wonder if, in my mind, if you're buying a GTD, you're so far beyond a Street Hunter body kit. I'm not saying that to be disrespectful to Street Hunter. Like, there's a difference between like billionaire and millionaire, right? Or whatever that comparison you want to use is.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that actually having these parts, because even if Ford made replacement parts for the GTD, there are very few that are going to be produced, if any. And let's say I can't remember how many GTDs there are, but let's say they made 25 or 50 replacement parts of everything for a GTD, just because as a manufacturer, they have to do that. That means that there's only, so many out there. You're not going to, people that own a GTD are not going to actually fix a GTD and put it back on the road. They're going to say, oh, if I wrecked it, I lost it, whatever, move on. It's a money thing for them, right? You'll find some YouTuber that'll build a GTD from wrecked, 5 years from now. But like those cars don't have the Street Hunter body kit, in my opinion, actually makes the GTD more collectible in the long run, because we're not going to see, I'm going to brag a little bit, I'm going to see GTDs at Car Week next year, but like most people will never see a GTD on the road. Like
Right.
it's kind of like a Cobra, right? Most people will never see a real Cobra. The replica Cobra adds to the allure of the Cobra, the
Yeah.
real Cobra, right?
The real one. Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing that happens with this scenario, which is why I do agree with you to a certain extent. I get that they're trying to protect, what they've created, but nobody's buying a Street Hunter kit and then going and trying to find the GTD engine and suspension to swap it into their car.
Right.
That's like an insane level of build that even somebody like TJ Hunt with millions of followers and massive amounts of money behind him is not going to go down that path to build a car like that.
Yeah.
I think that these types of things are kind of like the difference between sneakers and cars, where replicas in the car world actually, not always, but a lot of times lift up and kind of put the real thing on a pedestal. Replicas in the sneaker world, if we're talking about like the general release, like mass produced stuff, they obviously don't do any good for anyone. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting story.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of I guess the interesting thing with the whole SEMA show in and of itself is it kind of opens the door for people to go and use their creativity to do whatever they want with it. Now, are they going to take, these official partnerships with, like my buddy John, who's done stuff with Hyundai and Ford over the years, and build something really cool and useful that Ford, that has nothing to do with what, say Ford in this example has in their lineup? Or is it going to be a TJ Hunt situation? There's no real rule book to SEMA builds. To me, I've always found like the cars themselves are cool, but I like the stories behind everything too. There was years ago, a couple guys, buddies of mine, Sung Kang and Michael Jin, they came together and built, tying in the whole top of the show Datsun thing. They built a 240Z called the Fuguzi that got debuted at the SEMA show. And that was just, I mean, that started from a conversation with Michael and Sung about Sung always liking Datsuns. Michael is a very successful businessman. He liked him too. And so they said, hey, why don't we build something super crazy? And they did. And they took, this Datsun, did a whole wide body kit on it and everything. And that was one of those success stories of, you find two friends that find, common ground, and they say, we're going to go do this. They do it. Nissan didn't send them a cease and desist, probably because it was an older car anyway, but they just kind of let them do what they did. And that was a really cool, to me, that's what SEMA really is it opens the door for that creativity, and you can interpret that in a bunch of different ways. And in this case, unfortunately, it might have put TJ in a bad position, but I see your point, Nick. I agree. It's not going to deter sales from Ford in this instance. If anything, people are going to go out and buy more regular Mustangs because they want to build a version of TJ Hunt's design so that it looks kind of like a GTD. So, I don't know. It's another one of those things that we'll just, like you said, we'll have to wait and see how it pans out.
Yeah.
It's super interesting to me. I do get both sides of it. On one hand, I see what Ford, they're like, yo, we just spent all this money. This is, obviously a super expensive car, and it's got to work. But I also see like TJ being like, okay, this is how you can make your car into one of a GTD. This is how you can get you a heavy on the quotations marks GTD. And I would so yeah, I mean, I guess it's very similar to the shoe surgeon. It's just like, yes, we're using a Mustang. Yes, TJ is using a Mustang, but it's not a GTD. Yes, surgeon is using a Jordan outsole, but it's not a Jordan. It's not
Sure.
officially from the brand. And I think people know that difference, especially people that are buying these products. They know the difference, which is, you know, what you guys have been saying. Like, they know the difference. They know they know that they're not getting a GTD because they buy this wide body kit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
All
yeah,
this
I don't
tells
know.
me is this is one of the reasons I never at an early age I thought being a lawyer would be kind of a cool thing, but I don't envy their positions because they get a bad
Yeah.
rep for taking the fun out of everything. But on the flip side, they also save their clients, you know, tons and tons of money and tons of heartache. So kudos to the lawyers in the middle of all of this, because they have the job that nobody really wants, unfortunately.
Yeah, you need a
Yeah.
lawyer that thinks outside of the box and saying, "Hey, instead of sending a cease and desist, let's get the marketing department in here. Let's get
Yeah.
some smart people in
Yeah.
here. How do we how do we make this work for both parties so that we can both get some value out of this, as
You know
opposed to
that
being like, let's cut this off. Let's kill TJ."
Yeah.
Like, that should be the attitude. It shouldn't be like, call my lawyer. Like, that should
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
not that that's how Farley talks,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. But that's just what comes to mind.
It's we're gonna have to wrap it up soon, but this brings to mind, that's a great idea, Jacques. It brings to mind another story from years ago. I think if they had this situation, they should settle it out and both sides could win. Be like, okay, you want to build a car, it looks like a GTD. Show up at the track with your car, TJ, and let's see what lap times it lays down compared to ours. And just do a fun little marketing thing, social media thing or whatever. Reminds me of a story way back in, I want to say it was the 80s, and I'm going to paraphrase some of this because I don't remember all of it, but I used to work for Southwest Airlines a long time ago. I was a flight attendant, fun fact. And there's a story floating around that company back in the day when they were, I think it was Braniff, that they had I guess, a slogan of sorts that was very similar, if not ideal, to theirs. And I'm looking up some of this because I don't want to get it all wrong. They had a whole situation where the CEOs, instead of suing each other, they had an arm wrestling contest. And it sounds hilarious, but Herb Kelleher, I think was his name. Um, he uh, he was a very, like, eccentric CEO, and he was always like drinking his whiskey and smoking cigars and stuff. And he was the one that kind of came up with the idea for this as the way to settle their differences, right? So what they did is, the slogan was, I think it was just plain nuts or something like that. I don't remember, but they ended up doing this whole thing called, I think it was called the Malice in Dallas, and it was it was in maybe it was in the 90s or whatever, but it was this thing, just plain smart was the slogan. That's what it was. And so instead of going to lawyers and lawsuits and stuff, Herb, who was this, much older, out of shape, cigar smoking, whiskey drinking guy, challenged the other airline CEO, who was much younger and much better shape, to an arm wrestling match. And the proceeds to this, they sold tickets, all sorts of stuff, and the proceeds went to a charity. And he agreed that whoever won could keep the slogan, and that's kind of how it went down. Obviously, Herb lost the arm wrestling contest. I think he even had a cigarette or a cigar in his mouth or something while he was arm wrestling.
As he
But
should.
because the whole thing brought both sides so much positive publicity, that's how Southwest was able to keep that slogan, because the other CEO was like, you know what, man, hats off to you. You handled this in a unique way. We both win here. You can keep the slogan. And so it's like stories like that are they always, it's always like, it seems like common sense that people could settle this in other creative ways, especially
Right.
nowadays. Like, back then there was no internet to promote this stuff. There was no social media. Nowadays you got all those tools out there. Come on, Ford, like, for real, let's get it together. Let's do something fun with this, and everybody
Yep.
wins.
Yeah. Yep.
So again, we're gonna have to start charging all these companies consultation
Yeah,
fees,
yeah,
because we are
yeah.
giving away a lot of really valuable
I
ideas.
love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. We need pay up, people.
Yeah. But man, no, this again, I know we get long winded here and there, but this has been a fun episode, talking about a little sneaker news, little car stuff, little drama. We've got a couple others coming up for you guys soon. I'm gonna let Jacques close the show because he's much better at it than me. But yeah.
I
Oh,
don't
now
know
I
if better
stumped
is the
him.
word. Yeah, so I don't know if better is the word. I would say different, maybe. But anyway, thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Well, I know you enjoyed the show because we enjoyed the show. We enjoy making it, and we feel like that's the best way for you to enjoy it. If we have fun doing it, we feel like you'll feel that energy, and then you'll have fun listening or watching the show as well. This is the Cars and Kicks podcast. I am Jacques Slade. You can find me at Cousteau on most of the internet places. Bumble, Find a Farmer, Instagram, TikTok, all the places at Cousteau. But I couldn't do this show by myself. I have two amazing co-hosts. Eric, give me your info, and we'll let Nick sign us off all the way.
Yeah, it's Eric Valdez, just my name, ErikValdez. You can find me on mainly Instagram because I'm old and I don't do the TikTok. I don't do the TikTok. I had to add a
I
the
don't
there.
do the TikTok. That's a mama's truck.
Mom. I need to get that guy on the show. That'd be entertaining.
There you go.
Oh, that'd
There
be
you
amazing.
Nick, you tell the people where to find you and us and everything.
Yeah, my name's Nick Ingval. You can find me at Nick Ingval on all the platforms, but more importantly, Cars X Kicks Show on Instagram, carsxkicks.com. You can find links to all the different podcast apps, YouTube, other channels, et cetera, et cetera. Thanks for rocking with us. We appreciate y'all. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Yep.